Boom. We are alive, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us today. Really exciting conversation. We have Stephen Arnold, the CEO and founder of Fracture Labs. We're going to be talking about Decimated today. I'm really excited to have you on the show, Stephen. How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing great. Thanks very much. It's a pleasure to chat with you.
Yeah, I'm excited, largely to learn here. I'm new to the, let's say, gaming sector, and you, on the other hand, are not. You're a much more seasoned veteran in this particular space, and you guys have been working on Decimated for quite some time. So let's start with you. Tell us about yourself, Stephen.
So I'm Stephen. I'm the CEO and creative director at Fracture Labs. I started the company in 2018, and I've been working in the video games industry since 2008. My career started in QA testing after studying music production and sound design. And I was hoping to get into the games industry as an audio producer, audio director. And I'd been writing a lot of electronic music and doing sound design for short films and animations, like when I was at university. But I started in QA testing, and then I kind of siphoned into localization and translation and voiceover production management as well, which was a good way to kind of get experience. And I worked with big clients like Zynga. We organized projects with World of Tanks, Wargaming, for example, translating all their games or translating World of Tanks. And I wanted to get more into creative production, so I started working in art, animation, and cinematic production in 2012, and that's where I started working with a lot of AAA game studios, helping them with concept art, storyboards, and I was organizing partnerships for motion capture and 3D art, cinematics production, and that kind of thing. So stuff like you can see here in the background, like the storytelling side of video games. And I was doing that for quite a long period of time throughout my career, working with clients such as Ubisoft and 2K Games, Sega, and several others, Cloud Imperium Games and Star Citizen as well. So I started working on my own games in 2014. My first game was called Hide and Seek Mansion, which I was developing with a small team I supervised for 2 years, which was essentially a kind of spy versus spy clone where you have two teams of players. One team play thieves and the other team play guards. And they're running around this kind of cartoon mansion where they've got to complete objectives whilst also setting traps to prevent the other people from completing their objectives. And that was our first indie project. We developed that for 2 years. We released it for free on IndieDB. And then I wanted to work on something a bit more ambitious. And I was also really interested in blockchain as well. So in 2017, I started working on Decimated. And in 2018, I incorporated the company, registered the trademarks, and started prototyping with Ethereum with a small group of developers in Kiev. And so we've been working on the project already for 4 years. And here we are now today. So the world's starting to take notice. It's all good.
Fantastic. One of the most important things we always look at are founders and their visions of this space. And I was slow to recognize the play to earn sector, but I'm now a huge fan. I believe it's our curve to adoption. So one of the parts that I'm excited to chat about here is kind of some of the in-game mechanics, storylines, and missions about gameplay, just because it's never been something I've spent a lot of time kind of focusing on. So do you want to tell us a little bit about Decimated, the storyline, and how this game looks to the individual?
Sure. So Decimated is set around 160 years in Earth's future after climate change and industrialization have destroyed the planet, and the technological singularity has happened where AI has now become the kind of ruler of the planet. So humans have become these second-class citizens where they're kind of scavenging the wasteland in order to survive. And we have a regime of cyborg cops, which are also played by the players. So the players can choose if they want to be a human citizen or a cyborg cop. And then they're competing with each other for virtual currency and virtual items, which we're using blockchain technology for the digital scarcity and provable ownership as well. So essentially, what we're going to create is, and what we are creating is a role-playing game in a persistent online world where players can explore that world with their own customized vehicle. They can customize their character, they can customize their weapon, and they can roam the map and do different missions in exchange for token rewards, or they can collect resources that then they can exchange for tokens as well. And then we want people to be spending their tokens back into the ecosystem to upgrade their vehicle, upgrade their character, upgrade their weapon. But they'll also have the freedom to be able to sell their virtual items on our marketplace as well, and also use them in other games that will fit into our ecosystem. And those will be other games that we bring into our ecosystem that kind of fit into the Decimated lore. And we're currently in discussion with some companies that have similar types of IP, that we'd like to pair up with, so then people can use their virtual items in our game and also in theirs.
Okay, awesome. That little portion of the conversation I want to highlight for a bit later down near the tech sector, or the more intricate parts of the blockchain spot. Well, tell us a little bit about Fracture Labs and its background and your relationship there as well.
Yeah, so Fracture Labs it's been a bit of a kind of rocky journey as a startup, because we started the company in 2018. I mean, I'm the sole founder, and I initially incorporated the company in Malta because Malta was called Blockchain Island. Unfortunately, that didn't really work out. Blockchain Island didn't really work out. So we reincorporated the company in Estonia because Estonia was a bit more of a crypto-friendly jurisdiction. So the thing is that it was difficult for us to raise money at that time, because it was a bit of a bear market. So what we decided to do was just to focus on the product itself, focus on game development. We were working with Ethereum smart contracts back in the early days and prototyping with that. We used to have a gameplay mode that was called Kill for Crypto, where players would shoot each other, and every time that they got a kill, then they would win one token from another player. And we prototyped that, but Ethereum was very slow, it was very expensive even back then. So we decided to put blockchain development to the back of our product backlog and focus on the game. We wanted to focus on the combat systems, the vehicle systems. So yeah, I think that in terms of Fracture Labs and the team, we've had a lot of people come and go over the years. We've had people from Crytek, we've had people from BioWare, we've had people from Avalanche Studios, and at the moment we've got a few people that have worked with CCP Games on EVE Online and also PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, PUBG Corporation. We've got some concept artists that work with Ubisoft, and several other people on the team that have worked on various other game studios. So yeah, we're a growing team right now, and it's really, really good because there's a lot of people that are interested in working with us because they really love the game that we're working on, and we think that we're kind of on the cusp of something revolutionary. That the blockchain technology aspect is going to revolutionize the games industry, and we've always kind of felt like we always hoped that we'd be like the first AAA quality game developer that would have a game with blockchain technology, and hopefully that by next year then that's going to be a reality. So yeah.
Yeah, you guys have a fantastic product. Again, because I don't have much time on deck understanding the game space too, what do you think makes a game super successful in the eyes of the game players? Like, is it the storyline? Is it the in-game mechanics? With Axie, we have a unique monetary incentive, and a lot of people are like, well, the game's not that fun to play. Here, so the monetary incentive is enough to get a lot of people to adopt it. What are the traditional in-game mechanics that people loved and would adopt generally?
I mean, I think that the type of game that we're making is a survival role-playing game, which is already a very popular genre. You've got games like DayZ and Rust, and then you've got role-playing games like Mass Effect and Fallout, for example, which we take a lot of inspiration from. But there's also games that are on the market which they haven't been professionalized by game development studios, but instead there's community mods of other games like Arma. So me and the team were big fans of those kind of games, games that are fun to play and fun to watch, where players carve out their own narrative. So you essentially give people a sandbox environment, which does have a lot of visual storytelling, like different environments that you can explore, and you can see that something happened here, but there's no dialogue there. There's no non-playable characters that are telling you a story. We're not doing a role-playing game where you speak to NPCs and then you get given quests and things like that. Rather, what we're doing is we're building a sandbox that allows the players to carve out their own narrative. And much like Frankie on PC, he's got a YouTube channel with millions of subscribers, and he's almost got like a story of his journey through the wasteland, the apocalyptic zombie wasteland. And if you miss an episode, you want to go back and watch the episode that you missed because you don't want to miss out on any of the story, because there is no story in the game. There's obviously a backstory. It's a zombie apocalypse survival game, but they create their own story by having themselves as the main characters of that gameplay. So that's what we want to do. We want to create a game where we just have the sandbox that's set in a dystopian universe, a dystopian world, a dystopian Earth that's heavily inspired by Blade Runner and Mad Max and RoboCop. But to give players the ability to customize their character and customize their vehicle, so that then they can personalize their own experience and then role play inside that world and then create their own story in the Decimated world. So I think this is the most important thing. But I also think that these days, one of the most important things for a game to be very successful is for it to be fun to watch as well as fun to play, because people are streaming games on Twitch a lot, and you have a lot of people that just, even me, I watch people playing games while I'm working, because I don't have the time to play the games myself, but I enjoy watching other people playing them and then talking and getting into situations where they're shooting enemies or whatever. So I think that's one of the most important things. So yeah, we want to make sure that our game is fun, most predominantly. We've been playtesting our game with the community for a year already, and it's a really good way to gauge how people feel about it, and what we need to change and what people like, what people don't like, that kind of thing. So yeah.
The ability to transfer some of the metaverse players and objects into different spaces is something we touched on just a few minutes ago. I'd like to kind of dip into this area now as we talk about, I guess kind of, for me, it's a philosophical and a conceptual area, because I don't know anything about technology, technically speaking. But let's talk about the switch and the transition from Ethereum to Solana, and maybe some of the technical conversation that goes on there. How much more is available to you now as a game developer, and what are maybe some of the obstacles, or I guess maybe it's even easier to use Solana as compared to Ethereum. You want to tell us a little bit about that story?
Sure, yeah. Well, because we were originally working with Ethereum smart contracts, we felt like it would be a natural evolution for us to just switch over to Polygon. But we were also reviewing other blockchains as well to find out what would be a perfect fit for what we're doing. And when we realized that we can write on-chain in C++ with Solana, we realized that was a perfect fit, because we're developing the game in C++. We're using Unreal Engine blueprints and C++, and it's all original code as well. We sometimes reverse engineer some content that other developers have made, but we always decompile it and make sure that it's scalable for our product. So for us, that's really one of the main reasons, as well as like the transactions per second and the speed, of course. Like it's the price as well as, we can send out a lot more transactions at a lot cheaper cost than other chains, right? But one thing that I want and we're building the game in Unreal Engine, but what we have is hooks to the blockchain where players will be able to connect their wallets up and then make transactions with our marketplace. So once they're actually playing the game and they're away from the marketplace, or let's say they connect up to an ATM inside the game world, that's when they can make transactions. They can cash the virtual currency that they've earned throughout playing the game. But when they're disconnected from the marketplace or disconnected from the ATM, then they're kind of out there in the dog eat dog world. It's like, if you get shot and somebody shoots you, then you might lose whatever your character has on his person. So that in itself is going to create a real kind of feeling of danger and anxiety when people are playing. It's like, but we have safe zones as well where people can just hang around and socialize as well. So, but yeah, the plan is to just have Web3 hooks in the game at specific areas in the map, not be building a game entirely on blockchain, because I think that we'd rather do things the traditional way and develop a game with traditional technology, using Unreal Engine, for example, and all the pipelines that go along with that. And just using blockchain as a tech stack is just something that adds additional value by the provable digital scarcity and the proven ownership of the virtual items.
Yeah, I have an intuitive guess here that Solana and video play to earn games like Decimated are going to do extraordinarily well. One of the reasons why I think that, and I wanted to touch base on this at the end of this at the end of this question, which is about the transitory nature of some of these, let's say, items, because if multiple game engineers are using Unreal Engine and Solana, if we're correct about this assertion, multiple games end up being built with these technologies. What's the interoperability of being able to, say, take a decimated character into a different game running on similar technology?
So even if two games are both developed in Unreal Engine, you still have to take into account a lot of factors, such as the naming conventions for character rigs and the texture maps and things like that, right? So it wouldn't be that characters would automatically be interoperable with other games just because they're using the same engine. You would need to have compliance, like you need to have guidelines where everybody's developing their games in the same way, which is the reason why what we want to do is bring other game companies into our ecosystem and then make sure that they're all on the same page and that everybody's kind of using the same naming conventions and tech stacks. So there are challenges. I think that, for example, if you're having items that are interoperable between completely different games, then essentially you have to create a version of that asset in that other game. Let's say you have a 2D game or a voxel-based game, for example. You would need to have an entirely unique 3D representation or 2D representation of that item in those other games. But even, like I say, for other games in Unreal Engine, yeah, you would have to make sure that they all work properly, because, you know, they break easily. You know, like if you have a naming, if there's a mistake with the naming of a bone on the animation rig, then the arm is going to start wiggling around like this all over the place, you know? So these are the kind of things that you want to avoid. And these are the kind of things that the QA team will also be trying to fix as well. But yeah, it would require a lot of work. That's why you need to make sure that all the teams are working in parallel.
Okay, yeah. There's a little bit of a side question, just, you know, my interest in the potential development of what these metaverses look like and how one might be able to actually even jump in between these types of ideas. Okay, so we'll cut to some of the meat and the fun part. Tell us about the DIO token and when you guys are planning to launch.
Yeah, so we've minted a total supply of 1 billion DIO on the Solana blockchain. And we've sold 15% in our private sale already. And we plan to list on several exchanges in around December this year and January next year. So we're still waiting for confirmation. We're currently in discussion with several of the top exchanges. And we're very excited about the interest that we're getting from them as well, because it's these are some big exchanges that we're speaking to, and sometimes it's quite nerve-wracking talking to them as well, because they're a big deal. But we're also planning to do an IDO on Firestarter. So Firestarter have been assisting with our tokenomics and assisting with advisory. And so we decided that we would do the IDO on their platform before we list on the exchanges. And so DIO is going to be our central virtual currency for the game. That's what players are going to play to earn, and is what players are going to spend on their virtual items to upgrade their character and be able to progress through the game. So everything in our marketplace is going to be reflected in the DIO price. We'll also probably accept USDT, and we're also planning to have a fiat gate as well, so that people can pay with credit cards, for example, for virtual items that way. Because we want to make it easy for people that are non-crypto to be able to just play the game. And in fact, blockchain is really just our kind of back-end tech stack. It's much like, like our server tech, for example. We don't really advertise that we're running the game on AWS. We don't really advertise that we're using blockchain technology, but people that know about it, they know about it. Yeah. But for us, it's we want to make it easily accessible for the traditional gamers, and for them not to even notice that they're using blockchain, that they're just playing a game where they have their virtual items and they have their virtual currency and they can spend it. But what our job is to provide utility for that token, not just in the game, but also outside the game as well. So as time goes on, we'll be arranging partnerships with other companies for utility for the token and other ways as well.
Is there a governance or a DAO token involved that will help develop the future nature of the game's development, etc.? Do you guys have a voting or a DAO structure or utility token alongside the in-game currency?
Not at the moment. We've discussed it, and some people have asked us this in the past if we're going to have like a hybrid token model, but no, just one at the moment. So yeah, just one is enough. But maybe if the strategy dictates that we need to have another one, then we'll certainly consider it.
Yeah, there's this well, I'll share a little bit of a rant of my feeling about this particular conversation. Might be useful, and I'm sure the community will enjoy it as well. But I feel one of the very exciting aspects, because we've talked to a few esports teams along the way, is that even in the video game sector, what the blockchain has done is really disintermediated the middleman to a lot of conversations. And that's how a lot of these video gamers, or let's say the esports players, these Twitch streamers feel especially when you have a video game, let's say like San Andreas, it costs $265 million. There's this strong wall of how games get developed, and how the video game developers versus the players necessarily are always operating. What I like about these DAO structures is the potential for the community to kind of hold the future and the participation of that future in its hand, like the ability to do, say, like in-game revenue sharing or character sharing through vaults. We're seeing the development of these guilds. I'm fascinated by how the metaverse turns into a type of open-ended workspace for individuals. So this is why I asked about the DAO token. I think it's one of the keys to that type of gateway.
Yeah. So obviously we want to enable the types of gameplay where if a player owns a certain type of vehicle, then he could essentially earn currency by transporting characters, other players around the map, So you could essentially be like a virtual taxi driver, You can pick players up and you can be their taxi driver to take them from one point of the map to the other in exchange for some virtual currency, And you could do that for 8 hours a day if you wanted to. If there's enough demand for people to use your taxi services, you could do that. But you can also pay other players to team up with you to complete quests and take down heavy NPCs or go and raid enemy bases and things like that. So, for example, if you've got certain players that are they've leveled up in certain skills, other players are going to want to hire them because they've leveled up as a medic or a mechanic or a hacker, for example. So they might go into the green zones where everybody's like hanging out and socializing and say, yeah, we need a hacker. How much is your rates? How much can we pay you to come and do this mission with us? This is what the reward is going to be if we complete this mission, for example. So that's how we anticipate there's going to be that play to earn mechanic, is people teaming up together with different skills and then doing the missions with the token reward at the end of it. So, but one thing to bear in mind is that you might not be able to trust everybody that you team up with, because much like these survival games like DayZ, somebody might say that they're friendly, and then once you actually do or complete an objective, they might turn around and shoot you and then run off with the stuff. So, but that's the reason why we've got the cyborg cops, is that they try and police the entire area and put bounties out on players that are being hostile to other people and robbing them and stuff like that. So yeah.
So I wanted to quickly ask about what an epic MegaGrant was as well, again, because I'm new to this sector. This is an Unreal Engine grant, is that correct?
Yeah, so essentially any companies that are developing games or any type of technology with Unreal Engine can apply for an Unreal MegaGrant, which is really a kind of stamp of approval for the work that you're doing. It can be a lump sum of cash as well to help you with development. We applied for a MegaGrant in 2020 when we were really early, and we didn't get one at that time. But we reapplied, because we made a lot of progress, and thankfully this year we were awarded one. So it was really good news for us. I think that all of our luck happened at the same time because we'd been struggling for years as a kind of indie dev studio, as a startup, working on the product, working lots of late nights, like not getting paid and always having budget issues and playtesting with the community. And it was at that stage where every single tweet that we wrote, we were hoping, is this the one that's going to get us noticed? And nothing. And eventually it all happened at once. We got the Epic MegaGrant and we raised funding as well, all in the same few weeks. So it was a very emotional time for sure. Like I couldn't believe it. I was actually waking up in the middle of the night thinking, this is not real. Like I can't believe this is actually happening after all this time. Because I'd almost settled to the fact that we were just going to be an indie studio forever. But I'm glad now that people are starting to take notice.
There's always fun serendipity in the experience of overnight success that took a lot of time to get to.
Yeah, I always like to draw comparison with the iceberg of success. Like people only see the top of the iceberg, but they don't see all the hard work and the persistence and the rejection and failure and all that you see underneath. Because we've gone through all that over the last few years, and I think that now we're starting to make some real progress. So it's really good.
Yeah, congratulations on that one. It's such a fun experience to get to the traction points. So let's go over some of the last few questions in this space. Tell us about the roadmap. What's the next 6 to 12 months look like, and where can we expect to see Decimated? Right. We'll start from, today, because I know you guys have a beta and alpha. There's something on Steam as well, which is quite a well-regarded platform, as far as I tell, like the regarded platform for kind of video game development. Can you tell us about, well, maybe give us a few minutes about what Steam is in that conversation, and also the rest of the roadmap too.
Yeah, so Steam is one of the main video game distribution platforms in the world. There's also Epic Store and GOG and several others. We put our game up on Steam back in April, and we put it up there to kind of get some vanity metrics so that we could show investors like how many people were interested in our game, because they kept on asking, like, show us numbers. We want to see numbers. We want to see who's wanting to play your game and how many people are playing it and that kind of thing, right? So we put the game up on Steam for that reason. And as soon as we put it up, we got more than 100 views per minute of the product, and several thousand wish lists as well, which was good because we didn't spend any money on marketing. It was just by putting the game up on Steam, we got a lot of traction there. But obviously, Steam have issued a blanket ban on blockchain games. So what we plan to do is just to release a blockchain-free demo on Steam, where players can get a feel for the combat, they can get a feel for the vehicles. And that might be, kind of like, maybe we'll allow people to play that as much as they want. But we're also going to have a blockchain integrated version on our website, which we expect to have done by around Q2 of next year. So we're essentially polishing up our demo right now, which we've been working on for the last couple of years. We're working on new environments. So we've got several different dystopian sci-fi environments that we'll be able to package together, so that we've got a PvP combat demo with the vehicles, and also with the blockchain integration. So people who have bought NFTs, well, that's one thing I should mention, is that our NFT marketplace should be out around January of next year. So we'll enable people to be able to buy virtual items on our marketplace in preparation for the game coming out. And while people are playing the demo and they're getting a feel for the combat and the vehicles and testing out their NFTs, we're going to be working on the larger persistent online world, which will take us a lot longer to develop. But we expect to have an alpha version by 2023. And then we would have the beta version by 2024. But obviously the game is going to be released in that. It's already playable now, but we want to release the alpha version as soon as it's ready. And then we'll roll out updates on a monthly basis. So what we'll do is we'll add new content to the marketplace. We'll add new features to the game. And we'll be also doing a lot of bug fixes as well. So we see this as, we've worked a lot. We've been working a lot on this project already for several years, but we've still got several years to go because we're essentially making a persistent online world. So it takes a lot of time, and now it's only now that we've managed to get the budget to make the project that we're looking to make. So yeah, the roadmap going forward is listing on the exchanges first, then our NFT marketplace will be in January. Then the demo, the blockchain-free demo, and the blockchain integrated demo should be Q2 of next year, and then the alpha version 2023 and the beta version 2024. So that's the next few years ahead.
Awesome. Yeah, it's an expedited process, and patience pays off. It's great to hear your story, Stefan, or Stephen. That P always throws me off when I see it. Just revert back. So the next few questions are just kind of in a broad spectrum. What's your thoughts about, again, because I'm new to the video game sector, we see a lot of adoption and interest in these play to earn games. What's some of the most interesting things you've seen develop in this sector that you didn't see coming?
I'm not sure, because I've kind of been in this space like since the beginning. I feel like I was one of the first people in the industry that was talking about play to earn mechanics and NFTs way back when there was just CryptoKitties and Decentraland, and Axie and the Sandbox were still just getting started. So of course I took a bit of a break from blockchain development for a short period of time, for around a year. And it's crazy how fast the industry moves, like it's one of the fastest moving industries in the world. Like if you, like a week in crypto is like 6 months or a year in any other type of business, So, but I've been able to keep up. And, but I think that one of the most surprising things is like just how seriously people are taking it, and how much people are spending their time and devoting their time into playing these games to earn virtual currency. What I didn't anticipate was the rise of the scholars and people who are buying assets and lending them out to other gamers. That's something that I never saw coming. But in terms of like the digital scarcity of the virtual items and customizations and user-generated content and tokenization and that kind of thing, I could see that coming a mile off. I felt like I was already, back in 2017, 2018, I could see it coming on the horizon, and I was like, yeah, let's do that. Like, that's the game we want to make. We want to make a game like that before it becomes popular. But unfortunately, we were too early. We were way too early back then. But thankfully, because we've been working on our product for so long, now we're kind of at an advantage because our product is further developed. So yeah, we're kind of learning from the other companies and how they're doing things. But we're also sticking to our kind of vision for what we have for Decimated and what we've always had from the get-go, So, but yeah, it's a really interesting space for sure.
Yeah, the guilds remind me or feel like the new rendition of the esports teams going forward in the future, that you're going to have these collectives of the Twitch gamers, the people that collaborate together. I was I think the first time I watched PewDiePie was in 2017 when I started to actually make YouTube videos. And it was fascinating to me to see that people were watching other people play video games. Someone just recently reminded me, it's a fair amount of time invested, that people are investing a lot of time in these games. Like, for instance, I love watching a great drummer because I can tell the countless hours that have gone into the specific technique that's being pulled off. So there's this unique symbiosis between the game players, the streamers themselves is one of the main points of value communication of the game itself, and that for their reward, I think the guilds are a fascinating conversation. That's why I asked about the in-game revenue sharing or in-game character loans, because I think a lot of people are going to get into owning digital assets that they loan out as their productive assets. I didn't realize people were spending like hundreds of hours mining for like an ore in a video game to make stuff. Like, it just didn't. I wasn't seeing a lot of that.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's just an open-end question. What do you think that this space is lacking? Is there things that people are missing out on that we're not taking advantage of in the crypto or the video game sector?
Well, I think that because there's still a little bit of resistance from the traditional video game market, and not just the community, but also the game development community as well. There's a lack of AAA quality games that are out there that are using blockchain technology. And that's why I've always kind of hoped that we would be one of the first ones, one of the kind of like first footers into the space. I think that there's a lot of games in the blockchain sector that are kind of like blockchain with a graphics user interface, where people are essentially, salvaging cryptocurrency or mining cryptocurrency, and they have kind of quite a, like it might look nice, but card collectible games or other types of kind of 2D games and browser games and things like that. So I think that what's lacking is big budget AAA games with really, really high production quality that the likes of Ubisoft or Electronic Arts would do. And I think that in the next few years you're going to see a lot more of that. And I think that what the games industry is doing right now is they're just watching and seeing what's happening. I think that once one company has proved it to work, and for the play to earn model to work really well on a big scale, then a lot of these big companies like Ubisoft and Valve and EA and Activision, they're all probably going to have their own blockchains. And then they'll have all their virtual items usable and interchangeable and tradable between the gamers. But of course, because they're using the smart contract of that publisher, they'll still get a revenue share from all of that activity. So I think that we're going to see a transition, a kind of acceptance at some point in the future of the video games industry adopting blockchain technology. They're kind of slow on the uptake. So I still feel like everybody that's in the blockchain space right now, yeah, absolutely. I think they will. And I think this is one of the reasons why Valve actually issued a ban on blockchain games as well. It's for a number of reasons, right? One, because they're not making any revenue from these free-to-play, play-to-earn games with NFTs. B, there's a lot of, low-quality products that, are, they're maybe abusing the users, for example. And also because Valve want to have a level of quality control as well. I mean, it's quite easy to get your game on Steam provided the game doesn't crash. Epic Store has got a much more strict process for listing your game on their marketplace. But yeah, I definitely believe that Valve are probably planning their own chain at some point in the future. And what they'll do in the near future, maybe in a year or two, is they'll say, we've announced Valve Chain or Steam Chain, and now everybody can use this technology. And it's probably going to be a clone of, who knows, it might be a Ethereum fork or maybe a Solana fork, or who knows, because we just don't know. Because, we didn't see Solana coming in the past, and who knows what it's going to be in the future. So the technology is always advancing. So I'm sure that the big game publishers are curious about how they can get involved for sure. Yeah.
I felt this might be one of their Kodak or Blockbuster moments where they're sleeping on it largely, probably because of regulatory conversations. They've already got a good thing going for themselves that's in a multi-billion-dollar industry. So they're like, they don't want to break what's already working through some legal confusion. I think we might see Fracture Labs that ends up as one of those top new players. And a lot of the times industry kind of subsides as changes, and you have these up and comers out of almost seemingly out of nowhere, because the old industry is slower to adopt, because they're so siloed in their production status and what they're capable of doing, because they're already in that multi-billion-dollar position. Whereas a smaller or like more nimble, lean idea can duck and dive and navigate these new waters more efficiently to get the most value of it. So I'm super excited about your guys' launch here. So for everyone that's watching the video, down in the links below, remember to follow Decimated by going to their Telegram, their Discord, or their Twitter channel. Any updates on their mid to late December launch, you'll be able to find there. So be sure to follow them. And then you got some last exciting thoughts you want to share? Anything I missed that you want to go over, Stephen, one more before we jump offline?
Yeah, sure. So obviously, as well as the roadmap that we've got going forward with the technical side and our roadmap for launch, we've brought on a whole bunch of guys that used to work at Rocksteady Studios on the Batman games, who are working on a cinematic trailer, which you've seen a bit of a snippet of in the background here. So we've got 2 cinematic artists and also a character artist as well who've joined the team. So yeah, we're currently scaling up our team with a lot more AAA developers, and this is going to really, really make the quality of the product like a lot better than it is now. Because what we've developed so far is kind of like a pre-alpha demo on a very, very small budget, and it looks nice, but it's still. I'm really excited for what it's going to look like in the next year and beyond. So yeah, I hope that everybody else is as well.
Well, that's great news. It's always fun to see visions come together for founders. One of my favorite things. And here's something I want a little tidbit I found. I'll leave you with I found this quote by the founder of Nintendo, who said, they say video games are bad for you. And it says, well, they said the same thing about rock and roll. It was one of my favorite video game quotes. Stephen, I've had a pleasure chatting with you. I'm super excited about what you guys are building. You have all the hallmarks of a great founder. So I think you guys are going to do really, really well. Congratulations on the Epic MegaGrant and all the success from this year. And for the Bear family, if you guys have any thoughts, questions, comments, leave those down below. And again, anything for the Decimated team, make sure you're in their social media channels, hitting them up for the coming launch on Firestarter and any of the particular launch days. I'm sure we'll be there as well, but that's where you'll get the most up-to-date connection with Stephen and the rest of the Fracture Labs team and community. Thank you, Stephen. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks very much.
We'll speak again soon. We'll stay updated, and when you have the next layers of the game ready, we'll invite you back on to come play. we'll do
Sounds
a live
great.
gameplay.
Yeah, we should do that. We should play the game together at some point. Yeah, definitely. I look forward to it.
Yeah,
great.
Awesome. Me too. Thank you, Stephen.
Thanks very much. Cheers.